As requested, I have my bullet journal here and I'm going to walk through my January bullet journal. What happened throughout the month, what worked, what didn't, how it influenced my February Plan With Me spreads, what I kept, what I changed, how all of the spreads function together, overlap, integrate into one, how it all works. I think what is really important to start this off is to talk a little bit about my beginning spreads, my beginning pages for my bullet journal. Now, I have my 2025 cover page set up here, super duper simple. On the left, however, I have my year's vision. Now, I love this idea here for my vision board. I saw it pop up on my TikTok, and once it was on my feed, honestly, it just did not go off. I love the idea of having a vision board, but collaging and me just don't honestly work. So this was a great idea as like a bingo board for me to fill things in. So I basically just went across the page and filled in what I had an idea of what I wanted to get done for the year. And then I have come back in and just really circled in closely with what I have accomplished. So I've done 1 month of alcohol free, which is really amazing. I'm feeling so much better, body, mentally, clarity, emotionally better, honestly, without having it in my system. I do have business goals on here as well. Things like custom bullet journals, manufacturing my own journal. I would love to do a reading journal, having 200 online orders, doing 12 markets. I'd like to do a networking event, a brand photo shoot. And then I have more personal based things like my reading goals. I would like to spend a certain amount of hours outside, having a garden, going camping, doing things like that. So this in particular really influences my spreads because I do want to keep some of this in mind when creating different monthly equations, basically. So that's really the relevance of what this is all about and why I'm showing it in my January specific spreads as well, because it will make sense a little bit later on. Flipping into my planning for my future log. On the left is a year at a glance starting from January 2025 all the way till December. And then on the right is more of my monthly broken down. I personally use it for YouTube videos. If you had other important tasks that need to go here, like birthdays, different events, if you had, let's say, a reoccurring appointment that you needed to go to, other things like that. It could be goals that you want to have done. Anything that can fit into a future log. Basically what you're doing is just pre-planning out the future, because I don't have all of my months as a calendar set up in a bullet journal, so this kind of combats planning a little further in advance. I also have, just at the back of my book here too, different markets. Now this is particular for me planning out more so in the summer, but I do want to just note that this is another type of style for a future log that you could use if you don't feel like you need so much space to write stuff down. So what I have filled in thus far is January, February, and March in terms of video content, but I do have a whole bunch of other spreads that I can be filling in here from May until December. I personally just don't have those filled out quite yet because I don't plan that far in advance. I probably won't be in this specific journal by December, but I still wanted to allow me room to pre-plan things out that far in case it is something that's relevant that's going to impact the future of my planning. All right. Now we're into January. What I love about this spread, and I talk a little bit about it in my February Plan With Me journal, is this monthly calendar. I really loved how the top portion was just a little mini overview of what I have done. You'll see that I have things like Sundays are different YouTube videos. Throughout the week, I have different drop-off and pickup appointments for my family, as well as different shifts that I'm working throughout the week. For this, I usually come in at the beginning of the week and will plan things out according to what's going on. So for example, Monday, I'll usually come in, fill in any type of dates I have going on within the next week or two, just to help with my planning. Or if I have dates that are pre-planned out far enough in advance, for example, I know I work Thursday mornings all the time at my one job, I'll pop that in right at the beginning of the month. So I really liked the ease of this specific calendar. And then if I wanted to have more in-depth information, I could have my business and personal divided a little bit on the left and a right there for me, so it's just a little bit easier to see. In terms of my theme, I really loved this. The only complex thing about it really was the decorative design in the middle. I followed a reference to a tee just online, sketched it out on a separate piece of paper, colored in the back, and then penciled it out over top. I think I showed this in my Winnie the Pooh theme one year. I think I'm gonna just link that plan with me video up at the top because that's the trick that I used mostly for this entire spread. And then these little stars were super simple to come on in. Basically, I just used my, where is it? My Zig memory system pen for the black parts here. And then I had everything's out in front of me, which is really, really nice. I have this. I don't even have the number on it anymore. It is so old, it's worn off, but it's just the pale yellow color in the Tombow brush pens. That's exactly what these little stars do. Then I just have a little sticker paper over top. The reason why I really liked this spread in particular is because my design went over top of both the left and the right side of the page, and you'll see that I took very similar elements into my February plan with me design. That's one thing I definitely wanted to transfer over. So I had my monthly calendar literally the exact same layout style as my January one, and I wanted to have elements go from the left to the right, so I did this kind of stained glass design in the background just to kind of merge and meld both pages together so it didn't feel so separate. So that was one thing that I really, really loved about this. On to the next spread. This month's business goals. I like this spread actually quite a lot. I'm laughing because I didn't end up filling in the last week of the challenge really, and I kind of started falling off. You can see here week 3 isn't even filled out, but I really liked setting this up at the very beginning of the month because it helped me focus in on what my intentions were going to be. And because I had such clear focus every single goal that I had, I was able to get my habit trackers, I would say, filled out a really good chunk of the time. So mini vlogs was one of my goals in the month, and I would say for the first 3 weeks I was really, really successful on that. Last week I just kind of fell off the map with all of the goals. So I liked the intention behind this. I didn't like the full execution of it because I was forced to come back to this page a lot, and I kind of forgot about it very clearly at the end of the month. So how I got around it so far this month is this little itty bitty mini habit tracker I'm placing in every single week on my weekly pages, so it's visually there for me to see. I can't just skip over it, so it was really, really simple for me to fill out. And then I'm flipping to the pages. Then I also have the exact same kind of layout here, and I go back in from my weeklies. This is just this current week. I go back in with the weekly ones that's been filled out, write it on down, and then do my review. So I really liked the intention behind this. I want to do, I think, this again in March, but have a little bit more intention going behind planning the spreads, because in my February one right now I haven't actually intentionally sat down for business goals, and I think that's kind of fallen off a little bit. My focus was more on making sure I hit daily goals versus overall business goals. So that is kind of what this page is for. Each week what my goal was to come back and to write one little positive thing about why I'm doing my goals as well. I found that really beneficial for the first few weeks. Again, I just had to remember to come back to this spread because it was a little bit out of my planning way. I have said all the time, if it's not in front of me, I just honestly, I don't go back and look at it. So that was one thing I really had to prioritize during January, and it just didn't get done. So love the intention, didn't love the execution at the end, kind of fidgeted around with it a little bit to switch out some spreads, and it worked a little bit better. Here is my first weekly spread for January. I have a love-hate relationship with this weekly layout in particular. I actually talked about it a lot in my how to create your perfect weekly bullet journal spread. Again, I'm just gonna link it up there for you if you're interested. And basically I go through all the things that I like and dislike about this specific layout and how it impacted my planning for the following week. So right off the bat, Loved the colors of it. Love that I had my top 3 goals specifically for planning. These top 3 goals, a lot came from my self-care checklist, which I found really, really helpful. That's kind of, again, how this spread leans into my weekly planning. So one of my goals was to do a self-care checklist. I wanted to complete it in the morning and evening. Doesn't have to be right away, but it does have to be within the first 30 minutes of me waking up. And then just be honest, don't think too much into it. You got this. So that was one of my business goals. Because my self-care checklist has top 3 goals on it, I just pulled my top 3 goals from there and put it into my journal. So that's really what helped me focus there. And then I just had a general list on the bottom of other things that I wanted to get done. What I wish I had a little bit different in this spread, and I fix it again later on in some future spreads, is just not having enough room to write fully across the page. I was really smooshed in the page and I didn't really like that. So that's something that I definitely switched up and switched around. So I ended up creating this spread, which is kind of the complete opposite when you look at the two back to back with one another. This one here, the entire width of the page is dedicated to one day, and then I just divided the length of that page into 4 or 3 different days. What I really, really liked about this in particular is I still had enough room to write my top 3 goals. Again, those came from my morning care checklist. I had enough space to plan out a couple of additional tasks, and what I ended up doing was pre-planning out different events that I had. So for example, work, my YouTube videos, those were pre-planned out things that I had off of my monthly calendar. So if I flip back to my monthly calendar, this is kind of how it melds into my weeklies, for example. So we were in the second week here for this specific planning. So Monday the 13th, I didn't have anything specifically on that Monday or that Tuesday, but I did on the Wednesday. I had a drop off for my sister and her classes, and then I had work in the evening on that Wednesday. So those are actually the first 2 tasks that you see here on my planning. When I laid this out initially at the very beginning of the week and I created each of these individual boxes, I came in and wrote top 3 tasks on Monday and divided each line. And then I also came in and just punched wherever those specific events were that were on my calendar. So Wednesday I had a drop off for my sister and I had work. I had work at 2 of my jobs there on Thursday, so I wrote that down on my Thursday down here. That's why I don't really have a top 3 task right here, because usually in the afternoon I come home and I just try to eat and get ready for the next job and just take a little bit of me time, so it's not very much so work focused. Friday I had a healing mass at 5:30, Saturday family dinner. Sunday I had my weekly layout for YouTube, and I had breakfast with friends in the morning. So again, that is what ended up going on my Friday. I did have other things that ended up populating throughout the day. So for example, Friday I wanted to read and do a laundry load. You can see I don't really like doing laundry, so half the time they don't get checked off on my list, but that is something that I had intention on doing that day, so it did get written down. Sometimes I'll come in and I'll either cross it off or I'll just leave it blank. Kind of depends on the feeling that I have. So that is what this week looks like. Really, really loved this week, but what I felt like I was missing is prioritizing the events that I was talking about from my monthly calendar. Things were getting a little bit lost, so I ended up flipping into, actually, I'm just gonna continue my brain thought and then I'll come back to those pages. I ended up creating this spread where I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I could write down my tasks a little bit better at the very bottom that were already pre-planned out, plus my top 3 tasks that are going to be what my focus was for the day. So before I really deep dive into this weekly, I'm gonna just flip back to my brain dumps. Sometimes this will be scattered throughout when I feel like it doesn't fit necessarily within a weekly spread. So I wanted to expand a little bit more. This is brain dump for Instagram. This is brain dump here for YouTube. I wanted to figure out how to set up my feed on my profile for Instagram. So I kind of just came up with like a little mock sampling, what I wanted to post, making sure that I was checking things off correctly. There were just some like general things that I could post, some categories if I was ever coming up with issues of finding content. Same thing with YouTube here. This is just for me to let out some thoughts. So for March, I wanted to guess the theme. I've already done that in February. I think I can say what my theme's going to be for March. Actually, my March plan with me is not going to be out at the time that I upload this. I don't think I'm going to share it quite yet. You'll have to wait one more week. So sorry. My brain's just going. It's a brain dump on the camera here. And then this little page here, I actually really liked. This is what I call a daily. I don't do them often, but when I do, this is what it looks like. So for example, Tuesday the 14th, that was from this specific day here. I ended up running out of space in what my weekly overview is, and I wanted a little bit more option to write out more tasks and to deep dive a little bit into each of these tasks. So for example, Tuesday the 14th, I had thumbnail photos. There were a lot of thumbnail photos that I wanted to do for Instagram in particular. So this thumbnail photo, yes, did end up getting done, but I needed to describe a little bit more in my brain what I needed to get done. So that's why this specific daily was created. And then I had plan with me stickers, what I needed specifically to get done. So it just made sure that my brain had a bit more space to really deep dive into all of the points. It wasn't just a general title, it was exactly the detailed description of what needs to be done. Same thing with Wednesday. I had a couple little spaces to write stuff out, but a lot of my events here were taking up the space, so I ended up doing an extended daily for this as well, not just my weekly spread. And then I did the same thing for Wednesday of the following week because I just needed a little bit more room on this specific Wednesday. So I came back and I wrote in what I wanted to get done specifically for Instagram, specifically for recording different reels and vlogs, and I needed to fix a billing issue for Shopify. So that ended up getting done. I don't know why I didn't check it off. Sometimes that happens too. So then this is that weekly that I'm talking about. I expanded a little bit with a daily here. That's kind of how this weekly and how my dailies flow together. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, I'd love to kind of create a little bit of a video on the differences between what a daily is in comparison to what a weekly is. If that's helpful for you, just let me know. I then had this spread. Honestly, just came out of nowhere. Don't know how I thought about it, but I really walked through the steps that I went through in my weekly planning video to come up with this concept. I love it. I've used this layout for the last couple of weeks, so it's definitely a winner. I've made a couple tweaks here and there, but one thing that I really liked is that I had room at the bottom here to write out my top tasks and my events like I had mentioned, but then I could also divide a little bit better into what my top tasks or goals were for the week. So my goals, for example, I had 3 goals. 1, to finish my YouTube February plan with me. That was its whole category in of itself. So Insta Reels a day, that goes in my socials, specifically the Instagram here. And then finish stained glass stickers. That also went into this February plan with me section because I needed to make sure that I had enough large decoratives, small decoratives, my calendar headers. One thing I loved again about this is just the decorative elements that pop through without. These ones were really simple to create, but I wish that I had a little bit more in-depth decorative elements. So that's kind of how this spread came about. Just gonna move this just for planning purposes. I had my top 3 goals and my events. Events always go at the bottom. Again, I just pull the events from the week that I'm working at. So this is just the last week here. And I had a lot on Wednesday, so much things to do on Thursday, a couple things on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that is where those events got filled in. I liked the idea of having my goals just written out again, very simple to see, so I could focus my top tasks on accomplishing these things. So for example, YouTube plan with me video was on Sunday. I had that written down automatically in as an event, but also my top 3 tasks. There's 1 that has to focus on YouTube, 2 that's focused on YouTube. That's 1 that's focused on YouTube there. So I pull from my goals to create my top tasks. So that was really important for me. Really loved the idea of having my February plan with me in depth of what I need to finish video wise and product wise. My general list, I noticed I didn't need that much space, so I just ended up smooshing it a little bit more. Here I had the intention of coming back in and adding a little bit more of like these little star elements, but I never ended up doing that. That's okay. And then this sticky note here was just a brain dump that I thought of because I needed to fix the printables of my sizing a little bit just to make them like a half an inch bigger once I had printed off and tested things. So that's just why that's there. And I just left it there because I don't feel the need to take it out. So I'm re-sticking it in. So that is kind of how my January overview worked. Big themed items that I really loved were the simplicity of my spreads this month. I really loved the decorative elements. I loved that I changed up the layouts each week just to kind of reflect what my needs were. I love my top 3 tasks. I'll actually just flip through really quick. This is the first weekly. Very, very similar to this right here. You'll be able to see I have the rectangle box at the bottom here. I loved that. I kept that. I really loved my YouTube. I just kind of zhuzhed it up a little bit bigger because it wasn't so much a sticker focused, it was more video focused, so I changed that title. My general, I had a whole area for that. I had a whole area for socials. I've talked about this already in my February creating of spreads, so I don't want to get too much into this, but you can kind of see how one spread really does influence the next. And there are decorative elements in there. These ones are just my stickers, so it was even more easy for me to create, which was amazing. I hope this kind of helps answer a little bit more of your questions just on how the different spreads flow together, how different elements on a single spread influences different aspects on the same spread. I love showing these types of things in my video, and I hope that you guys liked it too. But that is January for you, and I will see you in another video.